Burn-in, I feel is the wrong word, but run-in, perhaps, of the mechanical parts. I feel less that capacitors have to run in, but the thing is...
There are no measurable changes, is the thing. Okay, somebody says, well, the suspensions have had time to soften up. So, well, if a softer suspension was what we needed, we'd have put a softer suspension. And it's the same with people. You say, okay, amplifier running in, what's changing? Well, the resistor values have changed a little bit. Well, again, if a 1.1k resistor was the right value, we would have used it.
And welcome back to episode 29, season 2, Not An Audiophile, the podcast. And today it's the Munich High End 2025 show roundup. And we do an interview with Laurence Dickie, or we did one at the show, and today we play it, and he proceeds to set me straight on a number of things that I thought were maybe true, probably true. And of course we round up the show, the good, the bad, the ugly. There were some fantastic systems, there were some fantastic affordable systems, and there was some dreadful music. This episode of Not An Audiophile, the podcast, is sponsored by the subwoofer people, Harbottle Audio. If you're serious about subwoofers or just tired of muddy bass and bloated hype, check out Harbottle Audio. With over 800 subwoofer configurations, they solve problems from Trinov waveforming to vintage analog systems needing an actual musical subwoofer and not some hopeless air pump. No gimmicks, just pure, unadulterated bass engineered to a performance standard focused way beyond the mundane THD versus SPL. And yeah, the CEO wrote this ad. That's how inept they are at marketing and how much they care about sound. www.harbottleaudio.com. Oh, Munich High End 2025. Why do people, YouTube influencer type people, have it in for hi-fi shows? I mean, it's just a pleasure. It's amazing. It's a great city, great show, great equipment, lots of, great people having fun times listening to and looking at a lot of interesting equipment, new stuff, old, catching up with friends. I'm not sure what's not to like. Oh, that's right, the music. Oh dear. Please, exhibitors, just stop. It's just terrible. But moving right along, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the show. I was absolutely gobsmacked, amazed. All of those amazing type terms with the a cappella horns. I mean, I might be one of the first who was going on about how good they were, but they seem to have gained some momentum, and other people now realise, how stunning they are. The music sort of washes over you. It's utterly effortless. It sort of hangs in space. So much sort of inner detail. What a terrible term. But, there's information laid bare, but not in a laid bare kind of way. It's just warm and nice. And I don't know. They were playing proper music. Well, I consider proper music. Brick in the Wall Part 1. At least it's a song, and it has a melody. And, I've never heard it sound anything like that. It's just amazing. So, number one sound at the show, a cappella by a fair margin. Most expensive system at the show, a cappella by a fair margin. €4.5 million, which is a new record for my ears. I've never heard anything like that before in that price range. But unlike a lot of equipment at the show where you go, it looks cool, there's lots of boxes and lots of fancy cables and cable support, and but it sounds kind of ho-hum. The a cappella is stunning. So as an exercise in can we make a better audio system if we throw a lot of money and great ideas at it, the answer is yes, a cappella have pulled that off. But at a much more affordable price point, and with some local content, local for us at least, Mark Doman's room, his turntable, some Italian tube amplifiers, which I annoyingly have forgotten the brand of, and yet I knew them at one point, and Cesaro horn loudspeakers, which are also Italian. I've never heard a piano sound quite so much like a piano. That's what they were playing when I was in there, and the problem with this show is that there is so much to see and do you don't spend half an hour in a room, and if you do it at risk of missing something else somewhere else. Although maybe I should have spent longer there, because so many rooms are a little, they're a little ho-hum. And some of the comments on our YouTube videos on Not An Audiophile podcast YouTube channel, some of the comments are like, oh, it's just a show of shiny bling and snake oil. Well, I don't know about the snake oil. The shiny bling, yes. But they've got a point, and that is that some systems, might be $500,000 or euros or $1 million. They really aren't, they're not great value for money. Money not well spent. It's not bad sound, just not good enough, I would suggest. And speaking of bad sound, Wilson Audio and D'Agostino, that room, wow, what a disappointment. Not so much disappointment with the system, because I didn't get to hear it. It was probably amazing, but disappointment that some auctioneer / used car salesman just blabbed and blabbed and blabbed about how good the system was going to be when they played it, but he never got around to playing it, at least not before I departed the room. So that was a disappointment. The other room that was not so good, Tidal loudspeakers. A lot of people go on and on about them as if they're astounding. They certainly look amazing, and the Bugatti equipment that was in that room on static display also was, just probably for me, probably the best looking pieces of equipment at the show, but we didn't hear it. But the Tidal loudspeakers that were playing were thoroughly unimpressive, sorry. Just dull and uninteresting, and there's a mid-range weirdness that I couldn't quite understand at that price. Now, affordable equipment, there's lots of it at the show. Unfortunately, a lot of it is not wired up. It's static display. But the highlight, perhaps, as far as genuinely affordable gear was the Wharfdale, the new Evo 5 series floor standers with Audiolab powering them. Was very, it was, you're not going to say it's stunning, right? But it was very, very enjoyable to listen to, and, of course, thoroughly affordable. A few doors away was Totem Acoustics from Canada, and for me, quite a bit better sound. Not dramatically better, but definitely they were playing some orchestral, sort of symphonic type music, and it was breathtaking. It was very, very good in typical Totem fashion, just clean, sweet, musical, easy to listen to. Just an utter delight. Not sure why Totem's not spoken about more. Also great rooms, Esoteric Audio and Martin loudspeakers was a pleasure. We're jumping away obviously from the affordable there to the definitely not so affordable. Although compared with other systems at the show, I guess this one was only a couple of $100,000, right? Total DAC, also amazing, and TAD, genuinely a delight as well. So that's that. We listened to lots of other equipment. To be honest, most of it probably isn't worth mentioning because it was good but not great. You really have to go and listen yourself. And I would also say, as a caveat to those rooms that I didn't get excited about, that different music at a different time with a different amount of people and a different amount of ambient noise, and maybe on a different day when they maybe have tweaked the system a bit or changed something to improve it, could well add up to a more enjoyable demonstration. I guess it's a moving feast in the sense that show, in the sense that I would guess, and knowing from my own exhibiting experience, the system can improve over the day simply because you try things that evening to improve it and sure enough get a better result for the next day. Show overall, well, probably the best thing is what we're going to play now, and that's a chat with Laurence Dickie. He sets me straight on a few things that I thought were truths about audio, and he's an enthusiastic and generous lover of the HiFi industry. He loves making great equipment and giving people pleasure listening to music at home, and it's quite clear from his demeanour. So without any further ado, Laurence. Looking for your tribe? Visit stereonet.com today. Join one of the world's largest online communities for hi-fi, home cinema, headphones, and much more. Read the latest news and product reviews, or check out the classifieds for the largest range of gear on sale. Membership is absolutely free, so visit stereonet.com and join up today.
So we're delighted at Not An Audiophile today to speak to Laurence Dickie. He says he's the most famous loudspeaker designer in his
I wouldn't say anything.
And I actually, in my research of your career, which I've done for no, I haven't. I have looked around, and you, as much as you like to make light of certain things that you've done, you've actually done some incredible work. I mean, like like cutting edge, lots of research, and I guess I mean, what I really want to talk to you about today is the boring things like cables and cone materials and box enclosure materials, because the shape of your current range, the Vivids, is very organic.
Yeah, I mean, it is that shape for a reason. Ultimately, the shape of the box around the high frequency units in particular does have a real significance. It's the effect it has on diffraction and interference. You know, it's important. And the smooth shape around the tweeter is essential. Whether you carry that smooth shape on around the rest of the box is a little bit more artistic license, if you wish.
So less critical at lower frequencies.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, take the gear, which has this very organic single swirl on the top. In fairness, that could be a zigzag.
It could be a zigzag. I was going to say you could just hacksaw it off, but
no. It does actually do
because
something.
it's one of your patented, not patented maybe. It's a tapered. It's sort of
it's a tapered,
resonance reducing cap enclosure.
Exponentially tapered.
That's the word I was looking for.
Absorber,
yes. Exponentially tapered. Yes.
Yeah. Of course, the original came out of the Nautilus, and it works very well just sticking it directly on the back of a driver. But the, as it were, inventive step with gear was to combine the tapered tube with bass reflex, which we certainly hadn't done before. And that thing was actually patented because that combination, getting just the right taper, which absorbs the resonances but doesn't take away the port energy, was that was actually quite a step forward.
Just a clarification. So that exponentially that is actually the whole enclosure volume inside the reflex enclosure.
Yeah, and in the gear, the whole chamber volume for the bass units is what you see, and then at the top it blends smoothly into this curled exponential horn. Now, as I say, it doesn't have to be curled, and in fact, in our later products, the Kayas, there's a sort of hairpin bend at the top of the cabinet where the
so there is,
but it's still in there. The exponential taper is still in there. It's ever so simple, but it really works.
I mean, it's for the sake of an open and honest conversation, let's face it, it has to look good as well.
Look, there's no question a loudspeaker is a sculptural object, whereas really all the other bits of electronics and stuff you could hide away if you felt that way inclined, but clearly the speaker has to be more or less visible. Having said all that, of course, with custom install, which is a completely different world, and there is people in fact want to make their speakers invisible. I just don't get that myself.
Well, no,
for me, a speaker is, it's part of the joy of it.
It's a furnishing item to some degree. It's a piece of art, and yours obviously take that to a level much higher than most.
And I'll be honest, they do divide opinion. It's always been the same with our products. Going right back to the mid-noughties, when we were first exhibiting the B1 in the UK.
Yes.
And in the morning we had this Italian lass who came in and she fell to her knees and started stroking the speaker, going, "Oh, Bella," which was really lovely.
It is.
It's really lovely. But then later in the same day, these two women came in and one said to the other, in a not discreet way, says, "My God, they're ugly. I could never have those in my home."
It's a world of contrast, isn't it?
Yeah, really. No, but I'll tell you, on that day, the worst thing that happened was I was stood outside the room, as you do, to just get a breather, and these two guys in anoraks walked by and paused briefly, looked into the room, and then one says to the other, you've seen one, you've seen them all. I thought, now that's rude.
That's actually rather bizarre, because they realised what they were looking at, because, I mean, there actually is, I don't think there's any other, there's been a few curvaceous loudspeakers over the years. They've never quite pulled it off.
No, there are more and more.
And I think when I saw yours first, I'm like, oh, I'll see how how will this go? But having heard them over the years, I mean, at the end of the day, they do perform very well. And they do, and they've got they have that kind of hear-through sort of sound. I did see one video where you were talking about coloration, and I mean, you've clearly reduced that, even though it's vivid. It's vivid. The sound is kind of vivid because there is no coloration.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I feel about it.
I've always drawn that analogy with the window onto the performance, and obviously the purpose of the speaker is to give you a window onto the performance of the artist. We are just an in-between stage.
Absolutely, you do want to add, I always feel there needs to be a pleasant colour, though. I mean, you don't want a studio monitor. Some people do. I personally, I want a sort of a. Now, you also work in the pro audio world.
Yes,
so
I do.
You see the clash of the business-like nature of pro audio?
Look, there's a clash. It is a clash in the business side of the thing. There is, or should be, a huge overlap in terms of actual engineering. We're sort of.
I guess there is there? I mean, really,
yeah.
Acoustics don't change, but the priorities in the design do, I suppose.
The difference, of course, in pro audio, and it depends, whether you're talking about front of house, large PA.
Yes,
or studio monitor professional. Studio monitors are very much big hi-fi. And in fact, when I left Bowers, it was because I wanted to get into making studio monitors, and the drivers that I developed in that time before joining Philip in South Africa, I designed with the intention of bringing the Nautilus type quality of sound to studio levels of sound. But I also really had a fascination with large scale sound reinforcement. It's all well and good having one geezer sitting there tapping his foot going, nice.
But if you can blow away
100,000 kids waving their hands in there.
I mean, that's the real deal, isn't it? And in the same way as that emotion that you get in a big stadium just from having a performance or a band there, and the whole crowd is getting off. But to be responsible for the sound.
It's a buzz. And, obviously those kids don't give a damn, but you can sit there saying, that's my tweeter, that is.
I think they kind of do in a way. I mean, if it was dreadful, and some, I have to, and we could talk about pro audio more than domestic in some ways, because I've strong feelings that pro audio's fidelity-wise, is it just me, or has it gone backwards slightly? Because it's more convenient to make lighter boxes and things, or is that a going too far?
No, I think that's going too far. As always, the main thrust of
we're talking front of house, not studio monitors,
The most important factors are ease of use. People want to be able to get in and out of the venue quickly. Smaller and lighter.
Well, that's never been better, has it? Really?
No, it's very. The point is that sound quality tends to come a little bit further down the list of priority. Directivity, that's super important.
Yes.
Pattern control, being able to put the sound where you want it and not where you don't want it. And those tend to be perhaps a little bit more important than just the pure fidelity.
Well, that's perhaps what I'm referring to, is that directionality, directivity has been improved dramatically, hasn't it?
Line arrays are very effective in that respect. But we audio engineers do try to sneak the quality in.
Well, of course you do.
And obviously it depends on the engineer as well. But I think modern PA
so the line array
is pretty good. You get a good line array can work.
Well, I'll blame my local venue then more than the equipment. I'll blame the engineering team.
I was just talking to Jeff at Hey Now Hi-Fi about his latest installation, another dome and turntable, this time one with a SuperTrack Blackbird arm and a Mutec Hayabusa cartridge. Motorcyclists everywhere are wondering how that could be. Blackbird arm, Hayabusa cartridge. Yeah. Anyhow, then he said he was going back to the store to listen to some records on the Helix 2 in-store unit. I thought, do you ever get sick of listening to records? But then maybe not, playing them back through the Fisher & Fisher speakers that are crafted from slate. Anyhow, enough discussion of Jeff's antics. Back to the show.
There is a temptation with line arrays to try and get away with effectively just a tweeter and a cone bass mid.
Yes.
Where really you do need to have something in between. A line array should be a three-way box at least to make it work properly. But there are far too many two-way boxes, and the compromises that are made by having compression driver, just one compression driver going all the way from, I don't know, 1.5K up to 20, and then a pair of 12s going up to... there are too many compromises.
Yeah.
So, that is a bit of a problem. Okay, that's just economics.
Yeah, I'd say it's more my narrow band of experience. Coming back to hi-fi though, so if you were, say in 10 or 20 years' time when you're not working anymore and you're relaxed...
I can't even imagine that.
In your little humble provincial French chalet.
I like this dream.
Well, maybe it's not a dream, but or I don't know, you're in Durban on the beach. I don't know where you are. But
that's much more possible.
But the point is, you're relaxed. You've sold the business for gazillions of dollars, and your brain is still, of course, ticking over.
Yeah.
And you feel like you want to build a pair of speakers for yourself.
Yeah.
A pair of loudspeakers for your own personal use.
Yeah.
Is it asking too much to have you sort of allude to what they might be? Because you've listened to so much stuff, you designed so much stuff. You must have personal preferences.
That's
kind of already is it.
That's what it is. That's the embodiment of my personal state of the art.
Yeah, so something that is capable of playing very big, very loudly, very cleanly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. At the moment, I can't think of a better product.
Yes,
if I'm honest. I can make it bigger, but
you could make it bigger.
That's really it. That was the big step between our former top of the range, G1S, and Moya initially it was just making it bigger.
Well, you did that.
And in fact, it's almost incidentally, we ended up making it better as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah. I have to say, I don't feel I've heard them at their best. I've heard them here last year or the year before. You had them in a small room in the halls, and they made a very nice sound, but the room was almost no bigger than the loudspeakers. And is that a problem?
Is that the G1S or the Moya?
No, the Moya.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was here last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It was one of these little listening booths. It's not. It's certainly not ideal.
Not ideal.
The best setup I'm aware of at the moment is with Bill Parrish, our US distributor.
Yes.
He has a beautiful listening room. It's about 10 metres by 7.
Yes.
Probably about 3.5 tall. It's an ideal.
It's a perfect
room.
space for
It's
that,
a really lovely space, and he's got them
loudspeaker.
set up so well. Yeah.
And do you thoughts? What sort of front end do you need to get the best? I mean, they're not. They're quite sensitive, I presume.
Yeah, they are reasonably.
So they don't.
90.
In theory, they don't need them.
Well, that's the irony, isn't it? The bigger the speaker, the less amplifier. People obviously have this instinctive assumption that you're going to need a big amp, big speaker, big amp. But of course, it's the other way around. So, ironically, the Moyas probably get a pretty reasonable amount of sound with a single-ended 25-watt triode.
That's kind of or you could put a musical fidelity A1 on there or something,
absolutely.
and actually it would play quite loud.
Yeah. But in fact,
plus the amplifier could warm the room up if you're in a cold climate. So.
That happens. But in fact, of course, people end up putting 800 or 1200 watt amps on these things, and and then it rocks, of course. It's like
unlimited headroom.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Or club-like sound levels, which is fun. You can have a party with a pair of Moyas for sure.
Yes.
They actually. Back in the 90s, when I was quite interested in larger sound systems, I was still at Bowers Wilkins, and we we were into the whole rave scene in the UK and putting on parties. And I had a funny little sound system which was built with Bowers Wilkins drivers and the bass
you
section.
Found lying around the factory.
Well, very kindly, my boss Robert Truntz was quite supportive in this because he also thought the idea of having B&W Pro would be rather fun. So anyway, we took the 12-inch drivers from 801s and stuck them in the ends of cardboard tubes.
Oh yeah,
and stacked them up,
you
know, like barrels. And it was actually quite a nice sound system. It was never a loud sound system, but it had a hi-fi quality about it, which was rather. Anyway, I've never forgotten the sound that we had with that. And whilst it wasn't the route to Moya, the route to Moya is well recorded in other places. But having assembled this thing with eight bass drivers in it, I thought, yeah, actually, that's kind of reminiscent of that PA we built back in, literally 30 years ago.
Yes.
And indeed, it has some of that effortless bottom end quality, even at sort of club levels, and it's fun. That's the thing about this business. So we never forget. It's ultimately about having fun.
We got you on video saying exactly that the other day, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's all kinds of fun in this business, but I mean, listening to music and having it have some sort of having it sound like a band, having that sense of scale. As much as I love LS35As, I mean, for what they do in a small space at home in an intimate moment late at night, they can't make real music, not really, not even the sense of scale of a cello or something, really.
We must never forget that a decent tune will sound good even if you play it on a music box. That's the power of the art, if you wish. But the experience of the texture of the instruments and indeed the scale of the performance. And that's the other thing about Moya, which it shouldn't have come as a surprise, but it kind of did anyway. This perception of the scale of the auditorium, obviously it's an acoustic recording, that you get a sense of space. And the weird thing, and people elsewhere have made this observation, I'm certainly not the first, but when you sort out the bottom end of a sound system, weirdly, it sorts out the perspective of the whole range. So it actually places the higher frequencies in the environment. It's a weird old thing.
It does, in my experience. I could only agree, but luckily, I don't wish to argue with you. But that is a thing, isn't it? You get the bass right, and then you kind of, the rest follows. But is that a brain perception thing? Is that something going on in the acoustics of the space? Or
I think no. I mean, it's an acoustic thing. Is that to hear a large space, you need to hear low frequencies because clearly they're affected by the dimensions of the auditorium. Will affect lower and lower frequencies as the space.
And I guess part of the difficulty of creating a so-called live experience with a hi-fi system is that dynamics and that scale of sound, which you really can only get in a bigger room, I suppose. We all know when you walk into an auditorium and they're either they're just playing the backing music to get before the gig starts.
Well,
and straight away there's a sense of the sense of space of the acoustics. There's a long decay time, but a controlled one. But then there's that bottom end, that genuinely deep ease, also in the bass, which is clearly what you tried to get with Moya.
It's exactly so. There is an interesting thing with here thinking of classical concerts. Before the orchestra actually starts playing, and in particular if they've got quite a bouncy hollow stage, or some performers are on risers or boxes, and they'll drop a music stand or just shuffle their chairs or something, and they'll make a deep noise. And that's, just like that, somebody dropping a program over there. And you hear the way that the sound reverberates in the space. And even before the band started playing, you get a feel for the space. So, somebody coughs over there in the corner, clears their throat, and you just know the environment that you're in.
And it's all a bit special, isn't it? Because it's special because I guess you can't experience it almost any other way. And that's what hi-fi can't do. But getting back to your dream speaker system, which you've already built, but let's say you had to build a smaller one. I mean, in your B&W days, you must have experimented with cabinet materials a bit, and I guess comb materials, but I'm not sure that you had much to do with the choice of Kevlar, although...
No, Kevlar preceded me.
But you quite get along with that?
No, I'm quite adamant about this. I believe that drivers should operate pistonically in their passband.
Okay.
And that, unfortunately, I don't think it's possible to properly terminate a cone driver, for instance. So you've got a voice coil attached at more or less the apex.
Yes.
And a surround around the edge. And the hope is that as the transverse wave propagates up the cone, you absorb it at the edge with the surround.
Yes.
Well, you can't do that at all frequencies. It's quite pretty much.
No.
So there will therefore always be, assuming it's a floppy cone, as in Kevlar or plastic or paper, there will be resonant modes, and they tend to be in the sort of kilohertz and up. And they give the cone a character.
Yes.
And that is something that was really the thing with Nautilus.
It could be a pleasant character.
Well, no, it can be.
Yes,
Oh yes, absolutely. But
but it's not accurate.
No. The loudspeaker as the musical instrument, of course, cone character is perfectly acceptable.
Yes.
And indeed, the classic sound of a Marshall 4x12, it's split between the overloaded tube front end and these floppy paper cones cracking up, and the two together make
music.
Awesome music. But in studio monitor or monitor loudspeaker, I always think the word monitor to me means a loudspeaker which adds nothing to it. It's for you.
It's as transparent as possible. Literally hear what the electrical signal is. I guess.
So, to that end, I've always believed that drivers should behave pistonically, and I go to every effort to make sure that the breakups are as high and out of band as possible. Yeah.
An Australian loudspeaker legend has been born with the stunning new VAF Research i93 Mark V, winner of StereoNet's Floor Standing Loudspeaker Product of the Year and Sound and Image Magazine's Floor Standing Speaker of the Year, $20,000 to $50,000. VAF's i93 has redefined what I thought was possible from a loudspeaker in a domestic setting, says StereoNet. VAF Research, building award-winning loudspeakers in Australia since 1978.
So we're back with Laurence, and we were talking about floppy cones, and no one wants a floppy cone. Well, they don't, do they? Well, you certainly don't, because you've just stated that you kind of don't believe in it. So you're a fan of sort of multi-layered cones, exotic... I mean, you want them to be infinitely light, I guess, and infinitely stiff. Is that the thing or not?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well...
Look, in an imaginary world.
Okay. Yes, it's... the ratio between density and stiffness is crucially important. And so metal cones have a better performance in that respect, which means that their breakups, it's quite easy to get the breakups usefully out of band.
Yes.
There is a thing I should say here, is that somebody just the other day was asking me, you've got aluminium cones, can you imagine anything better? Well, yeah, of course, beryllium cones would definitely be better. The breakup frequencies will be roughly double those of the aluminium.
Is that right? They would be that much higher?
Oh, yeah. It's a very significant jump.
But they would be unmakeable out of that
material? No. TAD, of course, famous for their beryllium cones. Don't get me wrong, they completely work. But the thing is that there's more than just the breakup performance of the cone to consider here. There's also the dispersion. Now, if you've got a 100mm cone, by 3 kilohertz,
it narrows up.
It's about 6 or 9 dB down at 90 degrees off axis. So it's really beginning to beam.
Yes.
So you've got to cross over. You can't possibly take that driver much higher. You've got to cross over. And really, you should have crossed over an octave below. So like 1.5 kilohertz, something like that. So really, if you can have your breakup a couple of octaves above crossover, if your crossover is 1.5K, Well, that's easy. Break up at 6K is easy, even in aluminium.
And using electrically, third order filters is kind of.
Yeah, we go for fourth. Linkwitz Riley fourth. It's a classic sort of alignment, and I think it works for us. And it means that the drivers are absolutely in phase through crossover.
Yes, and all of that, the nasties are attenuated quite dramatically.
Absolutely adequately
attenuated.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that in a way we don't really need anything better than relatively humble aluminium, titanium or magnesium.
So it's kind of a non-conversation at this point.
It sort of is.
You don't spend a lot of time on it because you've kind of, obviously you're happy with that.
Yeah.
And you're happy with fiberglass? I feel like it's an ideal material.
What, except for a cone?
No, for a cabinet. Moving sideways to cabinets.
Yeah.
No, we don't want a 1/4 inch thick fiberglass cone. But it's such a mongrel of a material to work with. But you've worked around that by how you go about manufacturing it and where, I guess. But it's got to be a pretty good material for enclosure.
It's excellent. Actually, we use vacuum infused composite sandwiches, fiberglass sandwiches.
Yes.
So we've got a low density core. In the past we've used end grain balsa. There's a bit of a shortage of end grain balsa because it's being used in wind turbines in huge quantities.
Sorry, who's using it in huge quantities?
Wind turbines.
Are they really for the blades?
Yeah. So the Chinese.
They would be using a lot.
Yeah. Obviously that.
Yeah.
So we're currently using a synthetic foam material, which actually
you're okay.
Works incredibly well.
Yes.
Now, of course, one of the questions that people have asked me on numerous occasions over the past is, we see you use glass fibre composite. Why don't you use carbon fibre?
Uh-huh.
And my answer to that is very simple. If we were chucking this thing into space, then we'd use carbon fibre.
Because weight would clearly be an issue.
The absolute weight is important. Or if it was a racing car or something like that, or an aeroplane, the absolute weight is important. But we're bothered about resonant structural modes in the case. And a beam of materials with two stiff skins and a low density core will have a resonant frequency. You can stiffen the skins to push that resonant frequency up, or you can thicken the core.
Yes.
And the thing is that
thickening the core will raise the resonant frequency.
It raises it increases the stiffness of the structure without
thereby
appreciably changing the mass.
Well, hardly changing the mass.
Hardly changes the mass. Yeah. So for us, the performance of a glass fibre
enclosure material
is actually completely adequate.
It's not just adequate; it may be advantageous in a way, is it? Because because of where you perhaps desire to put your resonant frequencies of the enclosure, it's literally all you need. And it's about a tenth of the price, I guess.
Absolutely. But with Moya, we have put carbon fibre skins on the in and outside of the box because we can.
We can, and it looks lovely.
It looks. But of course, we actually we end up painting all our speakers anyway. So
I thought there's some little feature panel somewhere. Is there? Am I thinking?
There is the absorber at the back.
Yes.
I believe we can leave that raw.
Yes.
And have done on certain examples. It looks pretty cool, especially if it's a dark colour.
Yes.
It's quite natural. That does actually look pretty cool. But otherwise it's another well-kept secret.
Well, it's a funny material, like carbon fibre, isn't it? You see it a lot on automotive interiors, and I'm pretty sure it's not required in the slightest.
The stuff on automotive interior, it's
probably fake.
It's looky-likey.
Yes.
You can get vinyl wraps which look like carbon fibre.
And unless you're, I guess, driving from McLaren or something, where it's probably is real carbon fibre.
That is good. That is real.
Yeah. Like your steering wheel is presumably made from.
I think McLaren it's proper, seriously.
Yes.
Proper carbon
and probably
fibre.
weighs this much.
There is another place where we've been using carbon fibre for the whole history of Vivid Audio, and that's around our tweeter domes, and there it's vital there we
Yes.
couldn't possibly replace it with glass.
Yeah, okay.
That is a little ring of just 2 turns of 1,000-toe super high modulus carbon, which radically changed the performance of our domes.
Okay.
It is a really crucial part of vivid audio, as I say.
So this is in the drive unit itself.
Yeah, that's the D50 and the D26,
Yes.
the 50 and 26 millimeter
Yeah.
dome
Yes,
drivers.
yeah.
They have this special shape. It's a catenary, and it's the combination of that special catenary shape with this peripheral carbon fiber stiffener doubles the first breakup frequency.
Wow.
So, it...
Wow.
Yeah.
Doubles.
It does, yeah. So when...
So that sends it way out of the audible range, I presume.
40 plus kilohertz.
Yes, yeah.
And right back at the beginning of vivid audio, my old mates at Bowers and Wilkins had just started using the diamond domes.
Yes.
And so I called De Beers and the other lot in Germany for the Fraunhofer Institute.
Yeah.
Can we see some of this diamond action? 'Cause I thought it was pretty cool. But they had exclusivity deals, so that was a bit annoying. But then afterwards I thought, you know what, sod it, we actually achieved a pretty good result with our funny shaped dome and the carbon fibre stiffness.
Yes.
You know what, we have absolutely adequate performance. 40-something kilohertz.
Oh,
it's nothing to sniff at. It's fine. It's
And
fine.
do you have feelings on that humans don't really hear? I mean, some people, they talk about, was it Super Audio CD, or back in the day it was like, or Super Tweeters in general. Yeah. Is that a thing? Do humans hear some kind of half of, like a half, instead of hearing a harmonic, they actually hear a subharmonic? Is that kind of a thing? Or?
Look, I'm afraid I haven't been very rigorous in my testing. Ages ago, when I still did have hearing that went up to those sort of frequencies, I did just try putting a low-pass filter and sweeping it around and seeing at what point I could tell the difference. And frankly, it was like, oh, that's the limit of my hearing. If the low-pass filter is lower than that, I can hear it. If it's above it, I can't. And, I was like, what is it that people reckon? Well, I don't want to be rude, but I think.
It's a made-up story.
It's not really. It's not
a real thing.
Yeah.
That's weird. Hi-fi and not a real thing. Surely the two don't go together. Why are you putting your hand over your mouth? It's well, we could talk for hours about the interesting ideas that exist in audio, but you obviously in your profession need to stick to fairly hard engineering facts to make the product work. I try and keep my feet on
the ground.
Yeah.
I am an engineer. I used to say I'm a Newtonian engineer, as in if A equals B and B equals C, therefore A equals C. I have, actually, again, way back in my early days at BMW, when I was designing amplifiers, actually, came to terms with some aspects that I really wouldn't have believed before, but equipment, as my business partner Philip Guttentag says, equipment learning to be an amplifier, a loudspeaker, whatever, and the whole idea of burning and stuff, which flies in the face of rational engineering, but I can't deny it. And absolutely, one of the things I've learned is if somebody feels that this is the right approach, who am I to disagree? And indeed sometimes, I do a thing, I don't know why it works.
But it works.
But sorry, I'll do it.
Yeah, and you enjoy the sound one, that particular. I mean, clearly loudspeaker burn-in is a well understood, or burn-in I feel is the wrong word, but run-in perhaps of the mechanical parts. I feel less that capacitors have to run in, but the thing is...
There are no measurable changes, is the thing. Okay, somebody says, well, the suspensions have had time to soften up. So, if a softer suspension was what we needed, we'd have put a softer suspension. And it's the same with people. You say, okay, amplifier running in, what's changing? Well, the resistor values have changed a little bit. Well, again, if a 1.1k resistor was the right value, we'd have used it.
One in.
It's not that. And the other thing is, that I find quite mysterious, is if it was things changing value, then half the time it would get worse. Just statistically, it would. Some of the time it would actually. there would be a spread, but there isn't. It only ever seems to get better. Well, nearly only ever seems to get better. I have come across occasions when it started off well.
I feel there are times when things to my ear sounded worse, but I think that was maybe a product that simply was irritating to listen to. But on the speaker run in front, you would agree that the first half an hour or hour, there is a settling of the spider and the suspension, the surround to some degree, or are you actually very much firm? Like, for instance, when you're designing a new model, do you put 10 or 20 hertz through the speakers just sitting there in free air for a while to loosen them up a bit?
Loosen it.
Before you start playing and measuring, or?
Yeah, actually that's fair. You do just to soften up the spider. Yeah.
But how long would you run them for? I mean, I feel like half an hour's tons, but yeah.
It's that sort of amount of time.
Yeah. Okay, so but beyond that though, see, this is where I come unstuck as a bit of a cynic and a technical person. I once had a pair of loudspeakers that I was very intimate with on my own. Of course, in a retail environment, you only really hear the new ones. And then I ran out of them, and the company I was importing their product at the time had run out of them. Everyone had run out of them. I got a pair back from a client who I knew well. They'd done 300 hours. I put them in the same demo room. They sounded so much better. And I easily made the sale that I'd borrowed the speakers back for because they sounded delightful. And it messed with my head.
Right.
And ever since then, I've been kind of what really does happen in that 300 hours? And this is the problem. And power leads are the same. I've had a couple of demos done for me, and I'm like, I don't want to hear a difference. But then you do hear something, and maybe it's in the stereo imaging. Is it imaginary? You clearly feel it might be imaginary.
Well,
I mean, it's hard to understand the brain and how it, it's led down a path.
There is always going to be a psychoacoustic, psychological angle to this question, inevitably. But what I'm saying is that I do also accept that things are, our perception, the subjective impression does actually change. But what I'm sort of saying is that I don't sincerely believe that anybody really knows why.
No, yes.
And so, I'm thinking of cable makers. People have come up with cables which sound better. They think they know why they've done it, but maybe they don't. But whatever, they've arrived at a good solution and they'll carry on doing it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not sure I completely understand why my speakers sound good.
Well, you've got a fair idea.
I do. Look, there is an interesting thing. There are quite a few of us in this malarkey, all angling at the same thing. Reducing distortion, coloration, blah blah blah. We're all doing the same thing in our own way. We're all trying to do the same thing. But some pieces of equipment, some speakers, sound like pieces of laboratory equipment, and some speakers sound musical. So when I was at BMW, we prided ourselves with using engineering to design loudspeakers, but at the end of the day, we produced loudspeakers which were musical, and you could enjoy the music. And I think that has carried on through Vivid Audio. And I cannot really tell you why I believe our speakers are musical.
No,
and of course there'll be people who disagree, and that's absolutely fine.
Well, there's a fair bit of personal taste, but I think but that is the thing. There are loudspeakers that are widely accepted, are a very nice listen.
Yeah.
And they're, excuse me, I'll edit that out. There are those that I guess the marketing overpowers the reality, and then when you hear them, as you do at a show like this, as I heard a few things yesterday where I'm like, oh dear, that's quite coloured in the mid and upper mid-range in a very kind of unpleasant way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the room, excuse me again, and you're like, and then you're in the next room, same space, same dimensions, beautiful music is ensuing, and it's a tough gig, I guess.
There is this. Well, again, I mustn't overgeneralise, but there are rooms here where people have. It seems like they've tried too hard, and there's just too much bloody equipment in the room. And it's just
do you think?
Do you know what, mate?
I think
you'd be better off with just a little combined pre-power amplifier and all this nonsense.
Yes.
And sometimes I think actually a bit more simplicity would be better.
Yeah, there is, but that is the high end, isn't
Well,
it?
it
You have to have
is,
a lot of
yeah.
amplifiers and a lot of expensive racking to put it all in, and of course you do need your cable risers, which I know you're very fond of and a great believer in. And we should conclude the conversation there, perhaps, Laurence, because you may say something that.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, if you want to raise your cables off the floor, do it.
Exactly. If you raise your cables and you think it sounds better, then you're right.
Yes,
absolutely.
and that's all that matters.
I wouldn't,
Yes.
I wouldn't for 1 minute disagree.
It is probably the easiest thing in the high end to pick on, though, as being a bit silly. But the reality is, lots of people believe in it, lots of people make them, and lots of people buy them. So that's the end of the conversation. If you like what you like, then you should buy it. I mean, let's face it, no one needs a car fancier than the least expensive gutless little electric car, really, to get you from A to B. But of course, we all want something more interesting than that.
So, you just mentioned cars, and I hate to draw too many parallels with cars, but there's that effect of when you wash the car, not that I do that very often, I can tell you, but when you wash the car and you think it drives better.
Oh.
That's just that sort of psychological nonsense.
Could not agree more. And then there's those people that are almost addicted to making their car drive better by washing it every weekend. Unlike I wash mine.
Definitely don't understand
I wash mine once a year, whether it needs it or not. So it does drive better after that. And the other thing that it drives better is you pump the tyres up about 3 psi, and it's like, it just adds a little bit more jiggle.
Now that's
there's something in that.
That's cleaning your contacts.
Well, yeah, but yes. But then there's the other similar analogy. You get the car serviced, and you know damn well the dealer is doing. Well, these days, they're not doing anything. They put fresh oil in it and maybe a fresh air filter and really but yes, same effect, particularly if they've washed it for you. Ooh, it feels quite nice, even though they've just bled a whole bunch of money out of your wallet. Hey, thank you so much, Laurence, for your time. You've been very generous. It's been a great chat. You appear to be having great fun at the show. People are loving the speakers. There's a lot of love. You mentioned to me, I think it was before we started recording, that you'd had quite a lot of love from end users because today is Saturday at the show, and the owners of the speakers have come up to you and said thank you so much.
It absolutely is what makes it worth it.
Okay.
Anyway,
thank you again.
Shakes hands.
Yes. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy.